Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into the heart of how economists think. We're looking at how they judge whether markets are working well and how they evaluate policies.
That's right. We're diving into welfare economics. Essentially, we want to figure out how markets affect, well, overall well-being, or what we call economic welfare. How much total benefit does trade actually generate?
Oh.
And we'll use these tools to see if markets are, efficient in creating those benefits.
All right, let's unpack that, because whenever there's a big policy proposal, like, say, a new environmental regulation, you hear arguments flying back and forth. How do economists even start to analyze something like that objectively?
Good question. The key is splitting the analysis into two stages. Honestly, most arguments get messy because people mix these two up.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's positive analysis. This part is all about what is going to happen. It's objective, descriptive. It forecasts the effects, who gains, who loses, by how much. No judgment involved?
So a positive statement would be something like, raising the minimum wage to $15 might cause, say, a 2% decrease in employment in the fast food sector. Just predicting effects.
Exactly. You're sticking to the predicted facts, the what is. Then comes stage two, normative analysis. This is where the judgment comes in. It asks what should happen.
So that's where values enter the picture.
Precisely. Normative statements use words like should or ought. It requires a value judgment about what's fair or desirable.
Like saying, the government should raise the minimum wage, even with potential job losses, because reducing poverty is a more important goal.
Perfect example. You see the difference. One describes, the other prescribes. You really need to agree on the positive analysis, the likely outcomes, before you can even have a sensible debate about the normative side, the should.
That makes a lot of sense. Separate the facts from the feelings, initially at least. Okay, so let's say we've done the positive analysis. We see who wins, who loses. How do we judge the overall outcome from that purely economic, sort of mathematical perspective?
That's where we bring in the main criterion, economic efficiency. An outcome is considered efficient if it generates the most possible economic surplus.
Economic surplus. Define that for us.
Simply put, it's the total benefits from a decision minus the total costs. So the efficient outcome gives us the biggest possible economic pie, the largest total surplus.
Okay, but here's a crucial point, I think. Does efficient mean everyone is actually happier or better off? Does the biggest pie mean everyone gets a decent slice?
No, absolutely not. And that's a really common misconception. Efficiency maximizes the total surplus, the overall size of the pie. But an efficient outcome can definitely make some people worse off.
How does that work?
It just requires that the gains for the winners are larger than the losses for the losers. The net effect is positive overall.
So, theoretically, the winners could compensate the losers and still be better off themselves?
Exactly. That's the potential. But in the real world, that compensation very rarely happens, which is why efficiency isn't the only thing people care about. It often clashes with equity.
Right. Equity being about fairness, how the pie is sliced.
Precisely. Efficiency is about the size of the pie. Equity is about whether the distribution of slices is fair. Policy debates almost always involve both, not just efficiency.
Okay, this is clearer now. Let's shift gears slightly. How do we actually measure this surplus? How do we put a dollar value on the gains for buyers and sellers? Let's start with the buyer's side.
Okay, that's consumer surplus, or CS. It's the economic surplus you get when you buy something. Think of it as the difference between the absolute highest price you were willing to pay for something, your marginal benefit, and the actual price you did pay.
Like the feeling of getting a bargain. If I'd happily pay $25 for a streaming service, but it only costs $15, my consumer surplus is $10.
Exactly. That $10 is the extra value you got. And think about essentials like clean drinking water or life-saving medicine. The price we pay is often tiny compared to the immense benefit, the huge consumer surplus we get.
Okay, that's the buyer's gain. What about the seller? They must get something out of it too.
Absolutely. That's producer surplus, or PS. It's the flip side. Is the economic surplus the seller gets. You calculate it by taking the price they received and subtracting their marginal cost.
And marginal cost isn't just the raw materials, right? It includes their time, effort, the opportunity cost.
Yes, exactly. It's the minimum price they needed to cover all their costs, including opportunity costs, for producing that one additional unit. So if a baker sells a loaf of artisan bread for $8 and the marginal cost of making that specific loaf was $3.
Their producer surplus is $5.
Right. They earn that surplus on basically every unit sold, except perhaps the very last one, where price might just equal marginal cost.
So putting it together, voluntary exchange isn't a fight over a fixed pie. It actually creates value.
It's fundamentally a win-win situation. The buyer gets consumer surplus, the seller gets producer surplus. Add them together.
And that's the total economic surplus, the total gain from that trade.
Correct. That's the wealth created by that market interaction.
So the magic of a competitive market, then, is that it somehow manages to maximize this total surplus. How does it do that without some central planner telling everyone what to do?
It's pretty amazing, actually. It works by efficiently answering those three basic economic questions we always talk about.
Okay, refresh my memory. Question 1.
Who makes what? The market ensures efficient production. Basically, goods get produced by the firms that can do it at the lowest marginal cost. Competition forces this outcome naturally.
Makes sense. Low-cost producers survive and thrive. Question 2.
Who gets what? This is about efficient allocation. The goods end up going to the people who have the highest marginal benefit, which usually means those who are willing to pay the most.
Because they value it the most
Oh.
in economic terms.
Right. If you're willing to pay more for concert tickets than I am, you'll likely get them, and that maximizes the value derived from those tickets.
And the third question may be the most important one for efficiency.
How much gets bought and sold? Finding the efficient quantity, this is where the market really shines.
What's the rule that guides this efficient quantity?
It's what we call the rational rule for markets. Keep producing as long as the marginal benefit, MB, is greater than or equal to the marginal cost, MC. You maximize total surplus right at the point where MB equals MC.
So keep doing something as long as the extra benefit is worth the extra cost.
Exactly. If MB is bigger than MC, society gains by making one more unit. If MC is bigger than MB, making one more unit actually reduces total surplus. It's wasteful.
And the market equilibrium where supply meets demand, that naturally hits this MBMC point.
In a perfectly competitive market, yes. The price adjusts until the quantity supplied equals the quantity demanded, and at that exact point, the marginal benefit to the last buyer equals the marginal cost to the last seller.
So that's the invisible hand we hear about. Millions of self-interested people just buying and selling somehow end up maximizing the total benefit for society.
That's the core idea. It ensures goods are produced by the lowest cost suppliers and go to the highest value users, all achieving the efficient quantity without any central direction. Pretty remarkable when it works.
When it works, okay, that's the ideal. But markets aren't always perfect. What happens when they don't reach that efficient MBMC outcome? That's market failure, right?
Correct. Market failure is when the market's own supply and demand forces lead to an inefficient quantity, either too much or too little, is produced and consumed.
And what causes these failures? Are there common culprits?
Yes. Economists usually point to about 5 main sources.
Okay, let's tick through them. Number 1.
Market power. Think monopolies or industries with very few competitors. If a firm has market power, it can set prices higher than the competitive level. To keep prices high, they restrict output.
So they underproduce compared to the efficient quantity.
Exactly. That means potential gains from trade, potential surplus is lost.
Okay, what's number 2?
Externalities. These are side effects. Costs or benefits that spill over onto people who weren't involved in the original transaction.
Like pollution.
Classic negative externality. A factory pollutes, imposing a cost on the community that isn't reflected in the price of the factory's product. Because the cost is ignored, the market tends to overproduce polluting goods.
And there are positive ones too.
Sure, like getting vaccinated protects not just you, but others too. Or planting a nice garden benefits your neighbors. These positive spillovers often lead to underactivity because the person creating the benefit doesn't capture all the value.
Okay, market power, externalities. Number 3.
Information problems. Specifically, when one side of the market knows more than the other, we call it asymmetric information.
The used car example. The seller knows if it's a lemon, the buyer doesn't.
That's the textbook case. Buyer fears lead them to offer lower prices, which drives good cars out of the market. Less trade happens than would be efficient if everyone had good information. It erodes trust.
Right. 4th cause.
This one's more about us humans. Irrationality. The standard model assumes we're perfectly rational decision makers. But, well...
We're not always rational.
No. Behavioral economics shows we make systematic errors. Impulse buys, procrastination, difficulty with complex choices. If people consistently make choices that aren't actually in their best interest, the market outcome won't be efficient.
Okay, and the 5th source seems a bit ironic.
Government regulations. Now, regulations are often put in place to fix market failures, like externalities or information problems. But sometimes the regulations themselves, like price controls, quotas, or even certain taxes, can distort incentives and push the market away from the efficient BMC quantity.
Creating a different kind of inefficiency, government failure sometimes.
Exactly. It's a tricky balance.
So when any of these things happen, market power, externalities, etc., the market ends up with the wrong quantity and we lose some potential surplus. How do we measure that loss?
We measure it using the concept of deadweight loss, often abbreviated as DWL.
Deadweight loss. Sounds grim.
Well, it represents a loss to society. It's the difference between the maximum possible total surplus, the surplus we would get at the efficient quantity, and the actual lower surplus we get because of the market failure.
So it's basically the dollar value of the waste, the lost gains from trades that should have happened but didn't, or maybe trades that did happen but shouldn't have.
Precisely. It's the value of the economic inefficiency. If the market underproduces, DWL is the surplus lost on the units not made where MB was still greater than MC. If it overproduces, it's the loss incurred on units made where MC was greater than MB.
And visually, on a graph, it's often shown as a triangle pointing towards the efficient quantity.
That's the classic representation, yeah.
Correct.
It captures the gap between the marginal benefit and marginal cost curves for those inefficient units. The key is that DWL is all about the quantity being wrong. Price just redistributes whatever surplus is generated.
Okay. This framework of efficiency, surplus, and deadweight loss is really powerful. It gives us a clear way to analyze markets. But should efficiency be the only goal? It feels like something might be missing.
You're right to feel that. And economists definitely recognize the limitations. There are at least 3 major critiques of relying only on efficiency.
What's the first big one?
We touched on it earlier. Distribution matters. Efficiency maximizes the size of the pie, but it says absolutely nothing about equity or how the pie is divided. A policy could be incredibly efficient, but leave some people destitute while others get vastly richer. Many would find that unacceptable.
So fairness counts, not just total size. What's the second critique?
This one cuts deeper, I think. Remember how we said marginal benefit is often measured by willingness to pay?
Yeah.
Well, your willingness to pay for something isn't just based on how much you value it in some abstract sense. It's heavily dependent on your ability to pay your income.
So someone rich might be willing to pay more for something than someone poor, even if the poor person needs it more or would get more actual, human benefit from it.
Exactly. Think about life-saving medication or basic housing or access to good education. If we just rely on market efficiency defined by willingness to pay, these essential things will inevitably flow towards those with higher incomes regardless of need.
That feels fundamentally problematic. It means the efficiency standard can bake in and even worsen existing inequality.
It's a serious ethical challenge to the pure efficiency criterion. It highlights that value in the market sense isn't always the same as value in a broader human or social sense.
Okay, distribution matters. Willingness to pay reflects ability to pay.
Really?
What's the third limitation?
The third is that sometimes the means matter, not just the ends. Efficiency is entirely focused on the outcome. Did we get the biggest possible surplus? But people often care about the process.
How we got there.
Right. Was the process fair? Was it voluntary? Was it exploitative? Even if a particular market outcome is technically efficient, people might reject it if they feel the process used to achieve it was unjust or unethical. The procedure itself has value.
That's a really important point. Okay, let's try and sum this up.
Sounds good. So we've seen how economists approach policy with positive versus normative analysis. We learned to measure market gains with consumer and producer surplus, adding up to total economic surplus.
Right.
We saw the power of competitive markets, the invisible hand, in achieving the efficient quantity where marginal benefit equals marginal cost, maximizing that surplus.
But we also saw how markets can fail due to things like market power, externalities, information issues, irrationality, or even government rules.
And we quantify the cost of that failure using deadweight loss, the measure of lost surplus due to inefficiency.
So the big takeaway seems to be, efficiency is a crucial concept.
Right.
It tells us a lot about how wealth is created and whether resources are being wasted. But it's not the whole story.
Not by a long shot. It's a powerful tool, but one that needs to be used carefully, always keeping an eye on equity and those other limitations we discussed.
Which leads us to the final, maybe difficult thought for today.
Indeed. Since efficient outcomes often create losers who rarely get compensated, and since market value is so tied to ability to pay, the really tough question for society, for policymakers, for all of us is, When should we prioritize fairness or equity, even if it means sacrificing some potential economic efficiency? When is a smaller but more fairly distributed pie better than the biggest possible one?
That's the fundamental tension, isn't it? There's no easy answer there.
No easy answer at all. That's the ongoing debate at the heart of economics.